Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be going over the top five free agent quarterbacks for this offseason. Um, a lot of free agent quarterbacks, and guys who have made impacts on teams. However, I think there are five that stick out, in my opinion. Again, this is my opinion that I think would be best for any team looking for maybe a bridge guy or even a starter. This would be my order I go in. Number one or number five, sorry, we got Tyrod Taylor. Spot Rack estimates him at $3.3 million per year. I've always been a big Tyrod Taylor fan. With Buffalo, he put up some good numbers, and I think he was a difference maker with Rex Ryan. And when they brought him in, everyone was a little surprised to be a starter, but I think he can go somewhere. He can be a bridge guy. Maybe a team that drafts Jane Daniels brings in Tyrod Taylor. Um, Daniels sits behind Taylor, learns something. There's a lot of value a team can get by picking up Taylor. Um, you know, not the fanciest pick, not the biggest name, but he's gonna get you consistent production. I think the Giants did him wrong last year. I don't think that was a good fit at all. However, I think any team that could get him is lucky. At number four, Tannehill. I am honestly, I wasn't even thinking about putting Tannehill on this list because just I don't know. Spot Rack estimates him at 4.9. If you can get him for 4.9, I would say it's not bad. I pretty much think he's finished. Not a good year at all by any means last year. Um, I don't see him returning to Tennessee whatsoever. Maybe he surprises someone, but just lack of production last year really didn't help him. And I think Tennessee is going to look a lot different next year with Brian Callahan. And I think they're just going to take the reins and give it to Levis. And hopefully Tannehill ends up. I could see him maybe going to Pittsburgh, um, New England, maybe Denver, maybe. I don't. Everywhere else just doesn't make a lot of sense. I could see him in Los Angeles, the Rams as a backup, possibly. That would be a decent fit. Um, Washington as a bridge guy would also be a good fit. Again, depending on who they draft. But Tannehill, I would have him at four. I don't think he can really. I don't think he'd make a big impact starting anywhere though. Number three, I got Gardner Minshew. Again, I think he is one of the most underappreciated guys in the league. After what he did last year, he really made the Colts somewhat of a serious contender to get into the playoffs. With Anthony Richardson going down, I know they brought him in just to be kind of a backup to Anthony Richardson, but I think he really came out and proved that he could start. He could give you a full season. I mean, not a great, not the sexiest pick, but I think, man, like you can go out. I think you can win 8, 9, 10 games with Gardner Minshew as your starting quarterback. Um, I think if, but yeah, I think if the Vikings don't bring back Kirk Cousins, Minshew would make sense. Depending on who their rookie quarterback is. New England would make sense. Going back to Indianapolis would also make sense. Um, Going back to Philadelphia could make a little bit of sense. I don't know. They're pretty dead set on Jalen Hurts. Um, let me Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, I think would be a decent fit. Get him in competing with Kenny Pickett. Um, an underrated pick for Minshew could be the Browns. Now the Browns, they have Watson, obviously. Browns fans are not. They're not the biggest fans of that. Um, but if you bring in Gardner Minshew, obviously, Spot Rack estimates him at 5.3 a year. I would say he'd probably demand maybe 2, 3 year contract. The Browns might want to do that. That could be a very good thing for them, especially if Deshaun Watson doesn't work out or just keeps on his decline. I don't think that's a really big possibility. I think it would be a good fit though as well. Number two, this is going to surprise some people. I got Kirk Cousins at number two. You know, the Achilles injury. He was playing good football before that injury. However, I not a knock to Kirk Cousins. I don't think the sole reason he is number two, I would not pay him $40 million a year. There's no way, not a chance. I think that is just ridiculous, the fact that it is being talked about $40 million a year again. People complain about the Daniel Jones contract. It would be, I think, in the same ballpark as Daniel Jones, and he's 36 coming off a really rough injury. I personally would just not I don't think he's worth that much money, and I don't think Minnesota's gonna bring him back either. I think they're gonna move on. I think that'd be the best move for them anyways, but he's just he's won 1 playoff game in his career in Minnesota. He's been surrounded with Jefferson, Diggs, Thielen, Rudolph, Cook, talented defenses other than the last 2 years. Before that, talented defenses. I know Jefferson says he wants him back, but the grass sometimes is greener, and I think in this case it is. Um, I I just can't see there might be a team willing to pay that much. If a team's gonna pay him over 40 million, I think it would be Atlanta. I think Atlanta is desperate, and they're gonna make a big time move for either trade up in the draft for a quarterback or bring in Kirk Cousins. Just I don't in my personal opinion, I don't think it'd be a good idea for any team to bring Kirk Cousins in. I just think that that's silly, especially at 40 million bucks a year. If you're talking like 25 to 30, I might be able to get behind it, but off an Achilles injury, he puts up great numbers. He really does. But how often does Kirk Cousins change the impact of a game? Not saying he never does it, but how often can he do it coming off an injury at 36 years old, especially when the Vikings have other needs around them? I don't think he's back in Minnesota. I would I would put my money on either Atlanta or Pittsburgh. And another underrated team would be the Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to make a push for a quarterback. Anywhere else, I just don't see it. I don't see the value of paying him 40 mil. Not saying he's a bad quarterback. I just wouldn't pay him $40 million a year. But then on to number one, I got Baker Mayfield. I this is gonna get some scrutiny. This is gonna piss some people off. But Baker Mayfield had a phenomenal year last year. A phenomenal year. He was healthy. He played good football. Didn't turn the ball over that much. I know people are going to bring up the playoff game. That interception was not his fault. Tipped right off the guy's hands. I I think my money would be on him going back to Tampa Bay, but man, I am all in on Baker Mayfield. I think the hate he gets is just unjust, in my opinion. I don't think it's warranted. He played great football last year, and nobody really talked about it. Nobody really talked about it. He won with not a great team around him. Sure, he had Mike Evans. Chris Godwin had a down year. Um, Rashad White had a pretty good year, but the fact that the biggest thing is his leadership. Guys want to play for him. Guys want to play for Baker. Um, there's the character stuff. I feel like he put that to bed this year. He was kind of quiet, not as loud as he was in LA or Cleveland, may say. But I think he's got it in him. And 27 million a year, I think that is a great steal to get him on if you want a good starting quarterback. I think a team that makes a lot of sense is Denver. Sean Payton. They got a solid team around him there. They do. Cortland Sutton had a good year. I think Jerry Judy, give him a little more time. I still think Jerry Judy can be a great player, but you got a high pick in the draft. You don't have to spend that on a quarterback. You bring in Baker. You'd have to move some things around with the salary cap, but you bring in Baker. You have a pretty solid running game from last year with McLaughlin, with Javonte Williams hopefully getting back into it. I think Denver would make a lot of sense. Or if they were in salary cap hell, the Saints. The Saints would make a lot of sense. I think, with Derek Carr there, they just restructured his contract. I think they're going to go for him for one more year or try. I I really I don't know about Carr, man. I don't know about Carr, but regardless, New England could also make some sense. I don't think that would be a realistic option, but you never know. Atlanta also makes sense somewhat. I don't think Atlanta would pay Baker, but the best fit, I think, if just he ended up back in Tampa, I think that's a great fit for Tampa. I wouldn't mind paying him 27 million a year. I wouldn't. And I think he is a better player than Kirk Cousins is. I do. I think he's a better quarterback. He's more of a difference maker in a game than Cousins. His legs, he's not a statue back there, and he's smart. Cousins makes some stupid turnovers, no matter what people want to say. He makes some stupid decisions. Not saying Baker doesn't, but I trust Baker more to lead a team, especially with his leadership. I'm a big fan of his swag, just all that stuff. He's got the aura of a franchise quarterback, and surround him with some weapons. Again, the if Minnesota made a push for him, Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson with Baker, I don't I think that's a legit contender. But no, that's all I got. I think Baker is number one, and people are going to disagree with that, but I'd much rather have Baker over Cousins. Um, that's it for this video today. Thank you guys for watching. New videos every day, hopefully, and I'll see you tomorrow.